Hello, John.
Hey, Alex.
Do you know what I hate?
What do you hate?
In no particular order, mimics, gelatinous cubes, and fireball?
Those are good things to hate, because those could all kill you at some point.
Especially if you're in the movie Dungeons & Dragons. Honor among thieves?
What?
In this economy? All right, I have one major question, and I'm not a linguist, even though I technically did go to school for English.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know any of that Middle English, Late English, that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it not amongst thieves? That
don't
feels
know.
more old timey and Dungeons and Dragonsy.
Mm-hmm. But this isn't your daddy's Dungeons and Dragons. This is Dungeons and Dragons for the 21st century. So you don't want to get too smart with it. You want to have a wizard make quips.
So I gotta say, Jeremy Irons really great.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Marlon Wayans really just pulls it off.
Just unrecognizable.
That kid with the floppy hair he's good. I mean, I like his brother a little bit better. This would work a lot better if I could remember that actor's name.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Josh Wolf?
I don't think that's Scott Wolf.
No, Josh Wolf. There's two wolves.
No, it's too many
There's
wolves.
two wolves. It's Dungeons and Dragons. They were. So there's a lot of. I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons really. Mm-hmm. Apparently, somebody called Justin Whalen.
Yeah, not even a wolf. He's a whale.
But I'm pretty sure Wolf has a brother, Scott Wolf, brother, and I'm pretty sure he looks exactly like that.
Probably. I mean, that's a very 2000s dude.
Okay, who cares? We're talking about the wrong movie. Let me tell you a very dumb story about this movie, and I don't actually know the answer. That narrator lady, there was a narrator lady, right?
No.
Like through the whole movie? Okay. So I didn't realize it till a way into it that something's wrong with the version that I got on YouTube, and it was doing the describing movies for people. So I watched the whole movie that way because I couldn't figure out how to turn it off because it was going on. And the thing is, I thought it was actually a really cool choice because I thought my main issue with thinking if Dungeons and Dragons movie can work is there's no player character. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. They're doing the player character speaking. That's the dungeon master saying, it opens the door cell and the female barbarian kicks the guy in the legs. And the person that did the voice has a very pleasing kind of ethereal lady voice. And I was like, weird choice, but I kind of like it. But then as it goes on, I'm like, it's doing over dialogue and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's ballsy. And it took me a really long time. I'm like, is this some kind of accessibility thing? And I couldn't turn it off because at one point I tried to turn the subtitles on because the narrator in this movie keeps talking over people's dialogue and the subtitles wouldn't work. So I still don't know what the fuck happened, but I got it through YouTube and it just, I have probably a slightly different experience with this movie because I actually thought that was a really bold choice. I was like, wow, they're really trying to make this like a game. Yeah.
Oh man, that's impressive. Yeah. It's also, I guess, just shows you how difficult accessibility options are just in terms of how do you manage that? Watching a movie and having that described, but then it's also going over the dialogue. And
yeah, I mean, note to self, don't go blind.
Yeah, I watched it, and it's, I watched it without accessibility options. I watched it I watched it on hard mode, basically.
Yeah.
And it didn't have that.
I think you missed out on a lot, because here's the thing. The reason I admittedly, I'm a fucking idiot here. But I want to give myself a small little bit of credit. I've never watched a movie with this on before. No. But the way that the narrator or the way the person describing the film used tense change, but before the next scene starts, you would be a person a person being a fucking dungeon master. So it's it made complete sense in context of the movie. And admittedly, I think a smart person probably would have figured it out at 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it, it may have taken me closer to 2 hours before I started questioning it. So, okay. That's it. That's my review of Dungeons and Dragons.
And the accessibility options for the visually impaired, thumbs up from Alex.
So have you ever seen the 2001?
No, I haven't.
So here's the fun thing about me watching this movie and not knowing a lot about Dungeons and Dragons is there's a couple spots where in my head I went, oh, they're referencing the original movie. And I'm like, oh no, that's probably like both from the game. But like, I don't really know the game. I only know the movie. So.
Are you doing okay? This is a worrisome combination of things.
No. Okay. So here's the specific one that made me think that. There is a scene where the floor turns into quicksand. Mm-hmm. And there is a famously lambasted scene in the 2000s version of this where the rug turns into quicksand, but it's just like some kind of viscous fluid that they like painted with sand and just painted. So the longer they get sucked in, the worse the effect looks to the point that it just looks like oatmeal being torn apart. And I'm like, oh, that's funny that they reference that. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then there was another reference. I'm like, oh yeah, they're probably both referencing the book. Because again, I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. Like, but, also, is Baldur's Gate part of Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah. I believe
I had no idea because they referenced it in this. I'm like, I thought that was a video game.
It is. But and I think, though, you might be onto something. That could actually be a reference, because one of the things I did really like about this movie is that there's tons of little Easter eggs and stuff in there that if you know it, great. If you don't, doesn't matter. They still were able to sell it just enough. I'm thinking in point, particularly because you're talking about references. There's the part where you see the wizarding party or the adventuring party from the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon when they're in the big final game thing. And
that's
it's like,
that was. I saw somebody in the background that I'm like, I think that's a reference, but I don't know what it is. Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. Like, it's still for the purposes of that. If you get it, you're like, oh gosh, it's those folks. But if you don't, it's fine. It's totally fine. Yeah. And like, I'm sure there's tons of, if you are a big D&D nerd, I have played some, but if you are big, like, I'm sure some of the animals that show up, little things, you're like, I know what that is. Oh, that spell. I know that one, but it's fine. Like, I think this does a good job of selling D&D to people that aren't familiar with it in that regard. Like, I don't need to have an entire lexicon of D&D terms in my head in order to enjoy this movie.
That's true, because I actually did enjoy this movie for the most part. But there's a lot of stuff that like it didn't lean into the D&D stuff enough that I noticed it. And I'm like, I'm sure that people that know stuff, what you're just saying, but the one thing that I can't abide is all the pro-potato propaganda that this movie spits out. I mean, talk about a movie. Hey, why don't you just say funded by Ireland? Because there's potato is the fucking hero of this thing, and I don't remember that being part of the game. And I played in upwards of one time when I was in 8th grade.
Yeah, so I have played a bunch, and I think in the later, anything past 2nd edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, basically you can tell when they got rid of Thaco and started adding Sacco potatoes, then that became a much more...
Just fuck you. Good joke, Alex, but it's painful when I'm on the receiving side of those.
Yeah, not so great.
That's kind of great.
In general, yes, I enjoyed this movie. I think it does kind of have that like summer blockbustery quippiness, but that's generally confined to like 1 or 2 characters, which I'm okay with. Yeah. Because it's like, okay, well, yeah, he's Chris Pine is a crappy, or not crappy, but like he's a shifty bard guy, charming ne'er-do-well, and it's Chris Pine. He's good at that stuff, and so I enjoy watching it. It's way too long. It is so
That's my
long.
main complaint. Yeah.
Like, there's so many things you could cut, and it's faithful to D&D in that your average D&D quest is made up of a bunch of tiny little side quests. You need this thing, you got to go do that. You got to go do this, you got to go do that. And while that's true in game-like, when you're translating it to a movie, it just becomes like this very sort of meandering episodic thing. And I think in the middle, it really kind of drags. And I think some things could have been absolutely tightened up.
Yes.
Like some of the bits with, I wasn't a huge fan of the super good, nice guy paladin. And I think like his thing, and just like tiny little things were like, oh, that scene of him walking away, didn't need it. The whole Bradley Cooper scene, not necessary. Enjoyed it, cute enough, but like in terms of keeping a fun, breezy running time, I think that kind of undercuts that. Wait,
let me stop you there, because this may answer my question. Who is Bradley Cooper in this?
The tiny man that Holga's ex-husband. Yeah.
When that happened, I wrote down, is he somebody? Because I couldn't put, I know his face is familiar, but I couldn't put it together. Okay. Yes. That was the exact spot. I was thinking that can get cut out. There's a lot of those little side quest things I think would have been done better in montage. That graveyard scene was the longest scene in any movie that's ever happened.
See, I got a kick out of that.
I found it funny the first 7 jokes, but like it just kept going and go. I'm like, when they do the thing where like you did, no, I'm Sven. You want my brother Ven? And you're like, oh God. I mean, I get what you're doing here, but this movie's already long, and we're like 8 minutes into the. I mean, it's probably a 2-minute scene, but it just
but I know what you mean. Yeah, it just goes on a bit long. But I do like again.
Those were the guys from that Australian comedy, Auntie Donna.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, the guys that did the voice.
Funny.
Yeah, but they were good. They tried to get Monty Python, but they said various reasons didn't allow that. And I'm like, sure. Yeah, I could probably guess. John Cleese.
That's funny because those guys, like that show, the Auntie Donna's House of Fun on Netflix, like there's like an arrow that vacillates between really annoying theatery bullshit and actually really funny, and it just is constantly like within 5-second increments is just flipping back and forth for me. And so like I like and don't like that show at the same time. I think they're very funny, but sometimes their shit's like really annoying, but then like it's really annoying for a purpose. And so I don't know. I did not realize that was them. That's great.
Yeah, I watched like one thing of theirs on YouTube, or maybe 2, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. It reminded me of like Tim and Eric, where it's like, if this came out 15 years ago, like Tim and Eric, or 20 years ago, whatever that was, I'd be like, yeah, this is good. But now it's like, yeah, I've already done this. Like, it just, I'm good. I'm all right.
I highly recommend the "Don't Get in the Kiln" sketch. That one makes me laugh a lot every time I watch it. But yeah, I think it does stay true to. It does feel like playing a Dungeons and Dragons game. This movie, and so I don't want to come down on it too hard for being quippy. Like I said, in that it is specific to the characters, but it's also a bit like the people I've played D&D with. I played with some people that are like hardcore, like, well, actually, as a paladin with this alignment, you wouldn't be able to do that, and I'll stop you if you try to do this action, because that would be out of your character.
Rightly so, you're cheating, John.
Yeah, but it's like, I'm making stuff up. Who cares? I was never a paladin. I was, I've been a dwarf thief named Crim Cram that I got not knowing how to play, I got too heavy armor, so anytime I wanted to sneak, I would get naked. It was a tiefling, I think, which is what the shapeshifter is in the movie. Wizard, like a wizard that basically looked like MC Search, named Helder Mazemind, and an arcane wizard who was looking for he was a children's author turned into an arcane wizard by contacting an old one while looking for information about how to make a bunny as fluffy as possible.
Oh God, is his name Stavon Kang?
No. That's good though. So like, that kind of like that not taking the fantasy stuff too seriously, I think made this fun too. And I think some people, some reviews I read that were a little bit like, well, this is just like Lord of the Rings light. It's like, it's fine. Like, that's not a critique of the movie in my opinion. I don't think it's trying to be Lord of the Rings. I think they nailed the tone really, really well. Yeah. I thought they hit it perfectly. It's like the inherent silliness of Dungeons and Dragons, of like, you're fucking hanging out, with your buddies, making shit. Like you played a fucking dryad, or what's that lady? What's her thing? Oh,
tiefling?
She's a tiefling. Yeah. She's like
dude, I was about to say, hey, in the real world, they're called dryads, but I was like, what the fuck are you saying, Alex?
Yeah.
In mythology, that would probably be a term for them. But, yeah, I thought they nailed it, of like, it's silly that it's like, you're a grown ass man playing like a delightful forest sprite. Like there's an inherent silliness to it. And I thought they nailed it well. And I thought the guy that got it the most, and the reason I brought up the original movie, one, because I think it'd be hilarious, but the original movie, the only, redeeming quality is Jeremy Irons fucking nails it. And I think Hugh
Grant.
What's his name?
Grant.
Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant fucking nails it. I love his performance in this. It's not too over the top, but it's slightly over the top enough that you're like, this is good. Like I enjoy this greatly. He's just got I don't know, he reminds me of Richard E. Grant a little bit, in that, like, when Richard E. Grant tries to be silly.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think, tonally, this movie fucking nails it. And everybody, including the lady from Lost, I thought were all great. And I don't like her. And I was like, oh, she's actually cast well in this because like she doesn't have to do much.
Michelle Rodriguez. I completely forgot she
Yes.
was in Lost. I forgot about that. Yeah, no, I thought she was great. I think it's a thing where I'm giving this movie crap for being too long, but at the same time, it's kind of funny that they bothered to kind of give all these people characters except for Sophia Lillis, the shapeshifter. Like she's just there to be a tool. She doesn't really have a character. It's like she's cute, and that one guy has a crush on her, and that's kind of as far as it goes.
The tiefling?
Yeah. I think compared to like, because you spend time with the wizard guy learning to do something. You spend time with Holga, like, oh, but she's heartbroken about this stuff. So let's try to give her a character. And we don't care. So it's either like, why did she get left out? I don't know.
I know nothing about the making of this movie, but the way that she gets introduced, how she's saving that lady, and then they go back to the castle or back to her like treehouse or whatever. It stinks of there was a subplot that they had to cut for time or it didn't come out right. Like it seems like there was 5 minutes there that we didn't watch because like the lady she saves just disappears immediately. I was predicting that like the big reveal is like, well, no, I like girls, like because he did elf guy or wizard. What's he, a sorcerer, wizard? I don't know.
He's a sorcerer. Yeah,
the sorcerer guy makes a point of when he retells the story of him getting rejected by her. He said, he said like, I'm not her type or something like that. Where it's like, oh, okay, so that's probably her girlfriend and yada yada, but it never happened and she didn't get a backstory. So I bet you there's like 5 minutes of cutting room floor stuff.
Could be, but I'm also at the same time like I'm fine with them being like, look, we're fighting for the emerald people or whatever they were called, and we're getting screwed over here too. So yeah, sure, I'll help you. This ties in. That's just enough to get like I'm involved, and now we can have some fun on the zany adventure. I don't need another 20 minutes learning about her.
I agree. Like I wish they had cut more of everybody else's backstory. I'm good. Like I'm good. I don't need your tiny husband. But then you'd cut only the women backstory. So that's probably why they kept the tiny husband subplot.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Because I mean, like obviously Simon's like ties into his whole quest and gives you the whole like growth because Chris Pine doesn't. And that's fine. He's not supposed to. I mean, his growth is emotionally like, I gotta, turns out I love my daughter and I was a bad dad. But that's harder to chart than this guy is like, I need to do X. And then he finally does X. But
what is Chris Pine in this movie? He's a harper? Like, what is that?
He's a bard, is basically like his class. But I don't
what is
know.
That book
I don't know
thing?
too much about. I don't know what harpers are in Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, okay.
They're a semi-secret organization dedicated to preserving historical lore, maintaining the balance between good and evil and other stuff. So he's a hero. Oh, sorry. The balance between nature and civilization, not good and evil.
I understand the whole traveling. I probably didn't know the word bard. I mean, I knew the word bard, but I wouldn't have come up with it. But I play a lute, yada, yada. But he's also like a Knights Templar. I was like, this is confusing to me. And I'm like, I guess this makes sense if you're like a D&D player, but like I was so not lost, but I was like, this feels like it feels like you're two guys in one instead of like just.
Well, and that's also funny because I feel like anytime I've played D&D, there's always a person that has played before and won't just be like, I'm a barbarian. It's got to be some sort of double class special customization thing where I'm like, it turns out I'm great at everything, which is very annoying. So I thought that kind of the bard being also the harper thing, not that that's could very well be common in Dungeons and Dragons, but it did make me think of that.
No, I think that makes sense because I think some of I've said before, I wish I was a Dungeons and Dragons guy. Like, I never found a group, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, some of the characters, the way that they're written, seems like they're not badly written, but it seems like they purposely kind of wrote them in a way that, like, a non-professional writer in a basement playing the game would do it. Like, there's not, like, a really serious nuance. Like, Edward?
Edgin, I think.
Edgin. Like, Edgin's backstory is basically like, my wife died. I got sad. Yeah. Easy. She's barbarian lady. I got knocked out of my tribe. Like, it's all these like really boilerplate things. And it again, that's like tonally made it good that way. Like if they tried to give everybody like nuance and made them real, it would suck.
Yeah. Because there's a certain level, like you said, there's a certain level of silliness to all this. And I on that same token, I do like that a fair amount of this stuff. There are events there that do feel like in Dungeons and Dragons that someone rolled a 1. If you're playing, for those of you who don't know, if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and you're doing certain skill checks or something in the game, you'll roll dice, and usually like if you roll a 1, that's usually like a fumble, like you completely blew it. And like when they're getting ready to cross the bridge, and over the flames to get when they're with the paladin guy, and he just steps on the wrong thing immediately, and it's like, yeah, he just rolled a 1. Like it didn't feel like completely. I think I was in the content, like the headspace of Dungeons and Dragons, that like something like that didn't feel like, well, what a convenient, just stupid gag, where it's like, no, that's a thing that can happen in the game. I
had that exact thought during one of the battle sequences in the castle where Chris Pine gets dragged away by like a dragon or something. Like his foot ends up in like a lasso, and he gets like dragged through the courtyard.
Oh yeah,
and like
yeah,
in my
yeah.
head, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess he failed like a roll or something right there, and that was the result. Like, and it's fine because it would be stupid, but in the context of this movie, it makes complete sense. It's like, oh no, this is a Dungeons and Dragons movie. Which again, I don't know if I'd be having this thought if it wasn't for my narrator, because I was constantly reminded that this is somebody narrating this story. I'm so fucking stupid.
That is great.
Wait. Let me one quick thing on the narrator thing to end that. That's the last thought of it.
Uh-huh.
There's a whole, because I honestly, like, it did occur to me early on, but there's no option. So I was like, oh, this must be but when I checked it the first time, there's like a 10-minute prologue, or there's 10 minutes before the title sequence, the title card pops up. And the narrator talking after the title card was there's no options. Honestly, I don't think I can turn it off. There's something wrong with the thing, but I thought that was the deal when it got to the title card, the narrator would, but since it didn't, it makes me think, why did we have a 10-minute thing that's directly related to the rest of the plot before the title card? Generally, that's supposed to be the thing you find out later connects to the plot. And it's like, no, it's like integral, really important shit. Like what, yeah.
Are you talking about like his whole like backstory thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's fine. It's just a weird way to deliver it. Cause usually like that method of making a movie is you do I don't know, it's set up, a thing you don't understand. And then you're about 45 minutes in and you go, oh, the thing from the beginning. And this is just like, no, it's just this guy's backstory. It's just how the movie goes. It's weird.
Yeah, no, but I did kind of enjoy that, and like it did make me worried at first because the movie opens with him, Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez, Edgin and Holden in jail. Edgin and Holga, there you go, in jail, and like pleading their case for why they should be released and giving you a sort of a little backstory about how they ended up there in the first place. And yeah, like you said, it ties into the whole event because the group they were with. But they keep coming back to he was hoping this one person was going to be there to help them try this adjudicator, whatever is going to be there. And he keeps referencing it, Jarnathan. And like, it just keeps being this running joke. It's like, oh, but if Jarnathan was here and whatever, that I was getting really, really annoyed very early on. I'm like, is this going to be the whole movie? Like, this feels very I don't want to necessarily just say like Whedon-y, but that kind of like current style of dialogue that I just don't like. And that was, I think, like the worst it ever got, which is the beginning. But then I think once I settled into the tone of the movie, it felt a little bit better.
I think that was poorly timed because I think that actually is funny once you know the characters a little bit, that their entire plan was we're going to dive on the guy with wings and throw him out a window.
Yeah.
But the fact you didn't know that was coming, yeah, I had that same thing. I'm like, oh God, is this it? Yeah, is this going to be like just another Marvel fucking quick session?
Yeah. Just insert different Chris and you'll be fine. But
the amount of times I called this guy Chris Pratt in my notes was fucking intense.
But but like I said, once they start settling into that, it's fine. And I also like that on that same kind of note that, again, much like D&D, or at least my experience with D&D, is that I liked that so often everything required lateral moves, or like the thing we wanted to do didn't work out, so now we have to try to do this thing. And so I feel like that happens a lot where, you know, he's like, well, plan B is wrong. We're going to go back to plan A, but now that plan A is plan C. Just felt a little bit like you negotiating, playing the game without getting too meta about it, which I think would have really, really hurt. But then when things do work, it's great. Like the heist scene of putting the painting with the portal in it inside the truck was really, or inside the wagon was really cool.
Yeah.
Any of the shape shifting, running away from people, I thought was really cool. Though I did like that it was a mix of like, here's us doing some awesome stuff, but here's us failing a whole lot also.
Yeah.
And then having to scramble and do stuff.
I like that too. I just kind of wish they did it a little up tempo. But one of the things that this movie brings up, and it's a good question for you, is when they're breaking in to try to steal the MacGuffin of Doom, shape changer lady chips away enough at this mirror thing that's facing down, so it's like they can only go to the floor. She chips enough at her room so she can turn into a worm and get out and then take the thing. So, John, if you were dating her, would you still love her if she was a worm?
Sure.
Really?
Yeah,
even if she was a
not?
worm?
I mean, why would she be a worm for a super long amount of time? She can change into whatever.
No, forever. She's turned into a worm forever. Yeah.
Well, I think that would be. I don't know how would we be able to have a relationship if she's a worm? How do we communicate? How do we exchange ideas and feelings?
Oh, to answer your question, you know what a sounding rod is?
No, that's not communicating. That's
it's certain kind of communicating. All right, so the answer is you wouldn't love your girlfriend if
she was permanently changed into a worm. I would still harbor love for her, but the relationship wouldn't work.
All right, I didn't realize you were a monster.
Yeah, that's the. I'm the bad guy in this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
On the note of the MacGuffin, the helmet of disillusion or whatever the fuck. I don't get, what does it do? Or do I not need to? Does it not matter?
To which?
It seems to do everything.
Which?
The helmet thing, like the
helmet of
it's like disillusion or something like that.
Yeah, basically it just sort of ignores magic within a certain amount of space. So it negated the magic seal that was on the that was on the vault.
But then he starts doing magic.
Well, that's more just the magic is. I see what you're saying. That it negates magic. Why isn't it negating his magic?
The guy that's wearing it. Yeah, but now he's like kick-ass at every kind of magic.
I think that him being kick-ass
I found it within myself thing.
Yeah, I think the kick-ass at every magic was him realizing, because like Chris Pine had said earlier that he would do all these spells, and I like the references to other adventures that they had, but that he would do these spells that would kick ass, but it was always like at the last minute. Is this very sort of afraid. Whatever, which is a funny thing. So when I was a sorcerer, there's a thing called wild magic that you could do that would sort of, it could be either great or terrible for you. When it seems like that's a little bit how this guy operates. But that he was able, like, as soon as he figured out that he was holding himself back, that he's like, okay, now I can actually access these spells that I sort of know.
Yeah, that makes sense. It was just that helmet thing. I mean, who cares?
But I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's like, well, you have a helmet that negates magic, but you're doing magic. I'm assuming it's like for the wearer or, whatever.
Yeah, it's got a...
He can turn it on and off.
Shield of Mochlin off. Yeah.
It's magic. But which I also, by the way, though, I really liked the constant running joke of them being like, can't you just magic us over there? Because I think that is a good, I think that gets discussed a lot, even with like Harry Potter shit. Well, how come they just don't use magic to do that? Well, why don't they just do magic to do that? That it sets, it not only just sets limits on what can and can't be done in this universe, but it also is a funny sort of D&D in joke.
On that note, I try not to talk about Harry Potter anymore, but I heard a theory the other day that I found really amusing, that Harry Potter's parents were actually incredibly negligent because they were hanging out in their house without their wands on them. They've got the most hardcore Nazi villain ever about to kill them. Uh-huh. Why don't you have your wand on you constantly? That makes it, because you have the ability to disapparate, to transporter yourself elsewhere if you have your wand on you. Why would you ever not have your wand on you, you piece of shit parents?
Yeah.
I mean, Harry probably fucking had it right. He probably had a better childhood because those negligent pieces of shit were murdered.
Well, they got too comfortable. You got to always be on your guard.
I mean, if I thought that fucking Hitler was after me, and like I've got a gun with like magical Hitler bullets in it, aka just regular bullets, I'm gonna keep that gun on me like all the time.
Mm-hmm. Your magical Hitler bullets gun.
Well, no, it's just regular bullets. Yeah.
But I kissed each one, so they're the magic of love. It was the only way to stop Hitler. Love, bullets filled with love. Once, because the gimmick is basically that Ed Gein, Chris Pine's character, he was this Harper. He there's been this sort of like one of the enemies of the realm is these red thane wizards. I think they're called. And he formed this in bringing one to justice. He ended up getting targeted by him, and to get revenge, they came to his house and killed his wife, who successfully hid her daughter. And so he's been raising the daughter, and he and Holga, his barbarian friend, and they've been raising her, and then trying to figure out, trying to make money, because he's not making a lot of money being an ex-harper, because he abandoned his oath after that. And then, so they become thieves, and they get involved with the group that includes the wizard that we meet later, Simon, the sorcerer, we talked about a little bit, Hugh Grant as a con man named, what was his name? Forge.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a ridiculous name. A guy named Forge, and this other wizard who is just creepy as shit. And I really like that. Like that actress that plays the Bene Gesserit lady? Yeah. Like, it's just, I like that she's like barely human, frankly. But
no, it's great. Yeah. She's creepy as shit. And then when she gets all like kind of dead skinny, you're just like, oh, this is gross, but you're actually creepier before. Now I'm actually kind of comfortable because you just look regular. Even before, you're like, what the fuck's going on over there? You look like, she looks like, you look like, you know how uncomfortable you get around one of those hairless cats? She's got that vibe.
Yeah. Totally. Something's not right here.
Nice to look at, but I don't trust you.
Yeah. But they,
in your face, Sphinx piece of shit.
They decide to do a heist that's going to, one of the things involved in the heist is a tablet of resurrection, and it'll bring back the dead. It can bring back one dead person. And so Chris Pine's like, booyah, gonna get my wife back. And they go to steal it, and they end up tripping an alarm that cops up this time freezing spell that catches a bunch of them in there. Forge is able to escape, and Chris Pine's like, take care of my daughter, take the amulet of resurrection, so when I can get out, I can use it. Forge's like, you got it, buddy. And then he and Holga go to jail. And
what they should have done is either hit the left shoulder trigger or moved your fusion hand, and that'll cancel the time going in reverse, and then you can just leave.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. Yeah. They don't have the arm of a guy that sealed away the Demon King.
Yeah, what they need is a Pura pad.
Mm-hmm. They need their own little Game Boy. Yes.
just not, I get the thing, but it just sounds like a sanitary napkin. Not that those are gross, but for you get what I'm going with.
Yeah, using them to put a map on is strange. But anyway, they find out
red maps are cool.
It eventually gets discovered that Forge was aligned with the other wizard that they were trying with, and the wizard is bad and is trying to recreate this other red wizard's horrible spell to create an army of the living dead. And Forge sold him out to become the king or the lord of Neverwinter, and raised Chris Pine's kid perfectly fine. Super nice guy. He's given her everything she needs, but totally just screwed over Chris Pine. So they're trying to get her back, but also get one over on Forge.
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem with the whole plan is, I mean, really, that little girl probably is better off with Forge. He was fucking off with the entire kingdom of riches. He's going to go somewhere else. They're going to be wealthy as shit. He's very nice to her. She's got this is great. I mean, I get that you want your kid back. I empathize. But, I mean, you're just some shithead loot playing jerk. This guy's rich as shit. If Elon Musk is hey, I want your baby. And somehow you had a blood pact that he's not going to do creepy weird adrenochrome or Jared from Subway shit. Their life is going to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. He's right in that situation that technically Forge gave her a better life than Chris Pine could.
I'm glad you agree with me that poor people don't deserve children.
Yes, basically that's what I'm saying. But no, I do think that just Chris Pine being Chris Pine was going to just get her into trouble. He had some growing to do in the context of this movie.
Also, she had like an incredibly powerful magical object around her neck the entire time.
Yeah.
And like at no point did she like get like all like, oh, I'm going to turn evil and try to take over. Oh, you would have a queen. Mm-hmm. So like in your face, Tolkien. These motherfuckers know how to deal with this shit.
I mean, she basically had the one ring in that it made her invisible, like Frodo.
Yeah, she was cool. It's fine.
I'm sure the one ring had other powers, but I don't care about that. So I'm just going to bring up the invisibility thing.
Nah, it's mostly just invisibility. Yeah.
That was pretty much it. But yeah, so then they go on this adventure to get together the group and try to rob Forge and get that tablet back. And then
I hate that his name is Forge because now we have to say it so much. That's a really crappy X-Men character.
Oh, he's like yeah.
He was like, I think he was like a Native American that was like really good at like technology or something.
Yeah.
It was like some really dumb like 1996.
Yeah, he's a mutant and tribal shaman. Yeah. Oh boy.
I mean, he might be a good character. I just remember it being like this cheesy, like he's just all pecs 1990s style.
It's very very kind of, I don't think he was made by Rob Liefeld, but no, very, Chris Claremont and John Romita Jr., but yeah, just that whole era was yeesh.
Yeah, was hideous. Yeah.
But so now they're going on their quest, the thieves, and like to recruit these people, and then they get them, this mishap after this mishap. Which we talked about, like being a little bit of, it drags a little bit there because you're learning these new characters and their
like
backstories and all that stuff.
What's her name? Michelle Rodriguez. Her gimmick of not really like just always telling the truth, which is a tropey kind of thing for barbarian characters, but she pulls it off well. And I did like the. So they're trying to plan how we need to sneak into the castle to figure out the runes on the blah, 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 who cares? But she's like, oh, you could turn into a deer. And it's like, oh yeah, how many deer are going to be in a fucking castle? Come on, that's a dumb idea. But then the leafling lady turns into a deer. And then Michelle Rodriguez is like, see, a deer. It's like, that was fun. Like, what a dumb runner to put in a movie. And I mean that in the best way. Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing where it's like, like tropes or whatever. Like, I know it's not unique to this, but having the total stand-up paladin guy kind of be like, do the Dax the Destroyer, like, I don't even understand, like, wordplay and stuff like that was really, I get what you were going for with it, like, he's so straight-laced and straight-edged that it's impossible to deviate from his righteous quest or to think in any other direction than what he's thinking. But it felt just like that joke again. And I was kind of surprised they went with that.
Correct. And also, not that the actor did a bad job, but I think he's just too handsome. It doesn't work. Like, that's like one of the best looking people that's ever existed.
Well, I think that's supposed to be it, is that he's just perfect in every way.
No, I get it. But then you can't do the, I don't get language thing. Like, you can have him be like, I'm great at everything and just be like a normal looking guy, and then you can do the language thing, but you can't have it's too much. It's like the fucking elves in Tolkien, which is like, calm the fuck down. You can't be, oh yeah, I'm really great at shooting and fighting and I can do backflips. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm immortal and have chunks of God in me. Like, calm the fuck down.
That is absolutely a D&D character. That is someone that, that's definitely like look, I want to be basically the guy from Boondock Saints, but also I'm invincible. Which I do like, because I mean, for being, arguing that these games are, sort of a power fantasy, that, like I said, having these characters, the rest of them just fail constantly is pretty great. Because then when they do kick ass, it does rule. And I will bring this up too. You mentioned the quicksand floor, is that a two-pronged thing here, and one side being like, I really like the effects in this movie. I've been pretty vocal about not liking a lot of CG, but this stuff looks really good, and like thought went into it. It wasn't just green screen and then we'll figure out something later. It didn't have that feel to it. It felt very sort of designed and thought about, which was nice. And it got me thinking about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, how the big magic fight was just throwing beams at each other, throwing fireballs at each other. And this, like, the magic fights were so much more like, use the environment, do this thing, conjure up that. It was so much more interesting and exciting than just, this colored beam versus this colored beam. And I really like they bothered to do that.
The only detraction I have from that, and I agree with all that, is that a couple of things they used were, I don't want to say stolen, but I think they used the template from other things. Like the rock hand fight versus the Ganon Gloom hand fight.
Yeah.
That's directly Peter Quill versus Ego in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where he's the flying Pac-Man. And then there is a...
but I did like that hand. That creepy, like, fleshy hand was so gross looking.
Oh, no,
I loved it.
It's great. It's
but
just like a little...
I agree with your point there.
When he went into Helmet Land, they've got that, like, spaghettification thing, which I feel like is just, like, something like a filter in After Effects. Like, there's so many movies have already done that. And Doctor Strange is one of them. Remember where they turn when they're going through the multiverse of, hey, look what we can do as VFX artists.
Yeah.
I think that exact thing was in there, which is fine. I'm not saying how much can you actually do? Like, I mean, there's a budget and there's time, but like, there's a couple of them like, oh, is that just like a thing now? Is that just, okay, that's like somebody turning into particles. It's like, oh, it's in every 7th fucking movie.
Right. But that being said, the effect, there's a little bit later where when they're trying to break into the castle, the Simon makes basically a hologram, a magical projection of Chris Pine singing a song to distract the guards. But then his foot gets stuck, so he can't concentrate on the spell. And again, it's this very convenient. Yeah, there's this one hole in the road, and his foot gets stuck. Whatever, it was funny. But so the hologram starts just like twisting and being weird in these strange ways. You might have seen it in the commercial where like the eyes get all big and like his neck disappears. And I thought that was so inventive and so funny in how they put that together. That it was uncanny and creepy, greatly. But I loved it.
So I saw that on the internet. I never saw the trailer for this, but I saw that like his face doing that weird thing, and I'm like, is that like a meme? Is that something that like just bored people on Twitter did, but is in the movie? I'm like, fuck yeah, that's awesome, because that just seems like bored fucking Reddit people. But like, no, that's they decided to go that way.
Yep. Yeah. I thought that was going to be some kind of like a not like a mimic, but some sort of like, oh, it's a monster pretending to be him. So or something else.
Yeah. Did you notice? So when they're doing like the big break in with the painting, that the painting is just Paul Scheer with a beard.
Is that who that is?
I don't know. I don't know. See if you can find a picture of it, because it looks like Paul Scheer that they just threw a beard on.
Yeah, it was just your average nobleman. I don't know. I didn't think about it.
No, but he had the gap in his tooth. Like it's very Paul Scheery.
I didn't look that closely, and I didn't have a voice telling me how to watch the movie, so I might have missed it.
Well, yeah. Look, we're not going to argue that I'm not a fucking idiot. Oh, here's a joke I didn't get, and I demand you, as the world's foremost D&D expert, to explain it to me. When Handsome Perfect Man leads them into the underground city of not Mordor, or not wherever. What's the name of the underground elf city in Tolkien?
The Underdark? Or no, you're talking about, I don't know Tolkien. What you Tolkien about, Alex?
Yeah, Moria. So when they're going to not Moria, there's a joke. I think it's, but I don't get it, because there's no punchline for someone that doesn't know D&D. So Handsome Perfect guy's in the front of the line and says, watch out, there's a brainiacs ahead. They're brains with 4 legs, and they'll suck out your intellect and take your body. Yeah. So they'll attack the person with the most intellect, which of course would lead to the joke that they would go to, Michelle Rodriguez. They're like the one that's like, oh, obviously that's the dumb one. That's funny that they would go there. But no, they just hide against the wall and the brains walk past all of them. I'm like, that must be a D&D joke I don't get. Or that's the most baffling scene in any fucking movie that's ever happened.
The joke is that they're all dumb, I think was what the joke was. Because
but they're not though. Like that lead handsome guy is like the smartest dude on the fucking planet.
Yeah, that's why he's up and away. He hit on a platform where they just went up against the wall, and then the brains, It's not like a really smart joke or something. I think you're trying to give it too much credit for like.
Well, I am, because if that is the joke that they're all dumb, that is, you wasted 30 seconds of my life.
Yeah.
That is,
but those monsters were cool
of VFX
looking.
artists.
I think those walking brains were really cool looking.
Fine, just put them in another spot of the movie. You've got the digital asset. All you have to do is fucking drag and drop. This is a spot that I think they could cut out. I really like when they go to the Underground City and they meet the Fat Dragon. Fat Dragon might be my favorite character in this movie.
See, I saw a couple of things where like, oh, and like this Fat Dragon, like really denigrating it, like that was really like making fun of it or something like that. I'm like, yeah, there's a joke about how it's a big fat dragon, but it's a enemy that they have to fight and does some damage. And what it does, like how it moves around is so cool. How it like ends up sliding down. It actually kind of felt like an Elden Ring or a Dark Souls kind of boss in that way, where it's like this.
100%.
Yeah, it's just doing some ultimate stuff. And yeah, it's they made a joke about how fat it was, but it still was a kick-ass dragon. It was cool.
Yeah, I really liked it, but like we didn't need all the lead up to there. We could just kind of like it's just because this movie is what's it 2:15. It's it's probably 20 minutes to half an hour bloated. Yeah. Like there's a lot too much, and this whole section could be just literally. Oh, we have to go to the underground city. Hey, we're in the underground city. Easy. We don't need a long journey. We don't need we can have the brain guys run in the background or something.
Well, like the other Thane wizards that show up to fight them, and it turns out they're undead. I mean, it tells you later, like it shows you like what the undead army could be like. Technically, yes, I suppose that's true, but the threat of raising an undead army is enough. I didn't need that scene where the awesome Paladin guy fights stuff. Yeah. Like it's fine. There's nothing wrong with the scene. The action scenes are all fun in this, but it was still just like in afterwards thinking about how like, boy, this went on for a while. You could have cut some of that down, just keep the dragon. But still, it was all fun.
Any given spot is great. It's just you don't need it for the whole plot thing. I did like the at least the name, and if this is something from Dungeons & Dragons, well done. The hither and thither staff. Fun name for a teleporting staff.
Yeah, I like that like sort of playing with portals and the fact that they were able to do that in a way like so when because it operates like the portal gun and portal. It fires one portal over here and then fires another portal over there. You can just walk right through it. There wasn't any like magic effect about doing it. When you walked into the glowing portal, you were just there. It didn't like try to warp you or something like that. There wasn't any like pizzazz put on it. It was just, that's how that worked. And so it was disorienting when you first see them do it, like when they're running away from the dragon or whatever. It was disorienting in this really cool way about like, this is how that would kind of work. It didn't just try to be like, magic effects. It was just, no, this is the functional use of it.
I really liked where Tetley Looseleaf gets into the bottom of the wagon and kind of loops sideways because the gravity shifts midway through the thing. That was cool.
Yeah. That was one of the.
I wanted to ruin her name in a different way.
Well, that was just a neat way to show how good he is at spells, and just that same thing too, like the functional use of magic and how if you want to cast a spell in D&D, some of them involve like moving your hands in certain directions and having certain items, and they kind of utilized that a bit, which I thought, if you're a D&D fan, you're like, oh, excellent. But if not, who cares?
These are the hardest movies to kind of talk about. Like I like what we're saying, but like there's just it's these little 4-minute chunks, and you're like, well, what? Well,
yeah, because there's not like it's plot heavy, obviously, and we touched on some like the big moments in it. But it is, because ultimately it's a fun ride. I don't think it's not something that really stays with you. I don't think it needs to. Ultimately, I just wish it was a little shorter and breezier than it, because it acts like it. And I think it loses its way a bit in the middle section, but it's still fun. And then when you get when they finally get to they have what they need, and they're going to go rob Forge, and they end up getting everything, but then it's, oh, well, the evil wizard's plan is going into action. And honestly, like if they had ended the movie where like, well, we got the gang back together, we got all the gold and everything, we're doing all right. It looks like our actions caused some other thing. Oh, there might be a sequel. I wouldn't be totally against that, because again, in like D&D, you can do these quests outside of the larger, you're not always saving the world constantly. You could be doing quests that exist in this other smaller element while there's other stuff going on. And so like this other one, it's like, well, we got to go back and save everyone. Okay, fine. Like, we got to wrap that up. I understand it. Like, I'm not against them doing it. And then you got a really great magic scene where they go and fight the Red Wizard. And that was fun. But I don't know. By that point, also, I was a little bit ready to be done with the movie.
Yeah, the middle drag it doesn't ruin the end, because I think the end is really fun. Mm-hmm. It's just your kind of mindset. It's I rarely recommend this, but this movie probably is best seen in 2 sittings. Like, get to the point that you're a little bored in the middle, and then, come back the next day. Because I think like having like a fresh, like a running start would help it. Because by the end I was just like, I kind of want this to be like the maze part. Mm-hmm. It's a cool sequence, but like I'm already good. Like you're not showing me anything new to the characters. I like the gel cube escape was fun. The gelatinous cube or whatever it's called. I liked how well they did the. I know them from JRPGs. I don't know, the treasure chest, mimics.
Mimics, yeah.
Yeah. That looked really cool. Like I was like, oh shit, that is as horrifying as they should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I know they're in D&D as well, but I just know them through like the Dark Souls games, and I fucking hate them.
Oh, that's right. They're in Dark Souls. I forgot about that.
Yeah. But yeah, those were all great. And I think something that when I talk about the quippiness of this, one thing that I liked is that in general, I would argue in general, that it has the quips, but this movie also lets you experience awe. Like it does appreciate that the things that are happening are bad or like big or scary or something like that. It's not always just like, seeing something like super amazing and being like, oh, I'll have what she's having, or, some other stupid throwaway line. It's still like the jokes are coming more from like specifically the situations and not undercutting what you're seeing so often. And I think that is, I think, endeared me to it a bit more as well.
You know what? This movie also did an amazing. Sorry,
no, go ahead.
You go.
No, go ahead. I had nothing.
This movie did an amazing job of. So they make. I'm gonna remember it. Forge. He's the Wizard of Oz. They even have like the big balloon with his face on it. Like he's this ersatz leader. Like that's the idea. I'm from another land. I'm a con man. Wizard of Oz thing. And then they got the balloon. Very Wizard of Oz. I like how the gold starts pouring out of his mouth. Fun, but. At no point did they say we're not in Kansas anymore or whatever the D&D version of Kansas. They made no other reference other than it's kind of Wizard of Ozzy. And I was like, thank you, movie, because that would have fucking infuriated me. But it leads me to my other question. Does Dungeons & Dragons take place on Earth?
No. I mean, not actual Earth, third planet from the sun.
Yeah. So is it an alternate Earth, or are they in Zeta Reticuli?
I guess technically, oh man, I don't know. Because now I'm like looking it up and it's like, well, Earth is a non-fantastical world in the Forgotten Realms, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. No, I'm just going to say no, it's not Earth. It's a fantasy Earth.
Well, then, John, this leads to the question, where do they get their hot chocolate?
Oh, no. No one actually drinks it, so we'll never know. We'll never know.
We have... that's got to be the sixth reference to that on this show.
It's been a while. It's been a while since we've referenced the Timothy Zahn expanded universe novels of Star Wars.
So stupid. Yeah. What's great is because they're kind of using that as a template for the next Star Wars movies and TV shows.
Is Thrawn showing up? I
think Filoni's actually doing a movie called Heir to the Empire. Yeah, he's going to be in Ahsoka.
I mean, the thing is like someone brought this up. I forget, someone on Twitter. I forget who, but basically that Thrawn is a dumb guy's idea of a smart guy. That it is like the whole like, oh, I looked at your art so I know how to beat you in battle is such a stupid thing. But when I was a kid, I thought that was so cool.
Well, he shows up in Star Wars Rebels. Mm-hmm. He's a regular character, and that's how he's going to come into Ahsoka. But they do him pretty well for a cartoon show. It's not as just pompous ass as it actually is in the books. Also, they redid Thrawn in the new Continuum, and he's less. I look at art and I understand. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, it's there, but it's not as Moriarty or fucking Sherlock Holmes, where you're just like, oh yeah, I walked in the room and now I know who killed that guy 2 weeks ago. Shut the fuck up. No, you don't. You didn't look at some pan flutes and figure out how to take over that planet.
I'll use the Zamfir gambit.
Yeah. He's like one of those guys that plays chess against you and goes, I see you're using Scarletti's defense. And you're like, I moved the horsey guy that way.
Which I think that is ultimately D&D to me, is that you can have people, because you'll have people that are really like, oh, I want to sort of get in the numbers and min-max my character and make him a glass cannon or do this and that, or like get really heavy in the lore. And it's like, I want to turn into an owlbear and shove a guy. That's it. That's all I want to do.
Yeah. That owlbear is sick. Really fan of that. Kind of want to be it.
I really recommend, I've probably referenced it before. There's a great podcast called Rude Tales of Magic that is like a very loose sort of D&D adventure that these people are playing. These comedians, Branson Reese and some other people, voice actors and whatever. But they have bear owls in that one, where they're owls with the head of a bear. And one has a pet.
Oh, that's fun.
Pet one named Flip Cup, and it's a very funny show. And they should make, on the success of this, they should make a Rude Tales movie. I would totally watch that. But yeah, so it's like I said, it's silly, it's fun, it's not as serious. It takes itself as seriously as it needs to, I think.
Yeah, I like the last scene where they have Hugh Grant try to dive through the window with the bird, but they have they already bricked up the window after Chris Hemsworth escape. It's a fun ending. And this movie like took a shit, right? Like no one watched it.
I think it did pretty well.
Oh, good, because I actually would really like a sequel. Like now that like they figured out how to do it, I would gladly watch another one of these.
Yeah, I would totally watch a sequel. I mean, chances are it's going to be like as fucking long, if not longer. And if they're able to retain the same thing and not get too high on their own supply about it, and like have even more stupid cameos, which is fine. Like the Bradley Cooper bit, it's charming. Bradley Cooper's fine. It feels when I think about the movie after having watched it, it was like that's the first thing I'm like that could go. That it's a nice little setup that Michelle Rodriguez, this tough barbarian character, is in love with a tiny halfling man. Great, but it just didn't really. It wasn't it wasn't worth the squeeze. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze. I guess so.
Oh yeah, we skipped over probably the most important part of the movie. The end, Michelle Rodriguez gets stabbed with the Morgul blade or whatever the hell that you call it in this. That's a Lord of the Rings reference that I actually remember the word for.
Nice.
And then they're like, hey, wait a second. This actually really is my daughter's mom because she helped raise her. And this is more important because earlier he establishes I was trying to save my wife, not your mom. And what he did at the end was actually save her mom, which isn't his wife.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And they actually kind of land it, which is annoying because tonally that shouldn't work, but it did. And I was like, God damn it. Fuck this movie.
Well, one thing the movie got me as well on the same topic, because there's a part where he's flashing back to his dead wife, and it's the classic dead wife shot of being under the covers in a brightly lit room, with white sheets over her head. And I'm like, oh, we're still doing that? Holy shit. But then when they show the scene, it's because they're both hiding from a dragonfly that he's afraid to go get. I was like, okay, good for you, movie. You got me. Like that was really well done.
Because I am so anti, I've talked about it on the show a bunch, like how I'm so fucking tired of dead wife as motivation. But this movie actually did it well. Like it worked for the movie, and also worked because I thought the narrator really sold it. This is just a story being told.
Uh-huh. Yeah, more movies should take on this. If they make a sequel,
I'm watching it the same way.
I mean, I think there are theaters that have like visually impaired, like assistive devices. You could probably get one, and otherwise you're just going to have to loudly narrate it to yourself in the theater.
Do I have to fake being blind on the way in?
I don't think so.
Damn, because I've been waiting to do that for years.
I mean, nothing's stopping you. I mean, other than, self-worth and a sense of decency, but those have long fallen out the window.
Yeah. Well, what if I'm in like a clay studio and I fake being blind and make a head of Lionel Richie?
Yeah. What else would you do? I don't understand the question.
Have sex with Lionel Richie?
Oh, okay. With assistance.
I mean, that's the answer. Yeah.
With assistance for the visually impaired,
make a Lionel Richie skull and then have sex with them. Yeah.
And have it narrated to you.
Straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah. So I recommend the movie. It's not, it's not perfect, but it's very enjoyable. Like if you're fun movie, just, lags in the middle, watching 2 sittings if you've got time, or, maybe fast forward a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. Like I will say this, my 6-year-old nephew saw it in the theater and was like rapt the entire time. So I do think that this could very well be an issue of seeing it in the theater versus watching it on home video, where it maybe goes down smooth in the theater a little bit better. Yeah, I still enjoyed it. I'd recommend it. I'll probably check it out again at some point, but particularly if you have played D&D and enjoyed it all, played any sort of tabletop role-playing game, I think it just sort of speaks to the joy that can be found in some of those. Fun cast, fun direction, good stuff.
All right, let's recommend some things to the audience. I'm going to start by telling you, I recommend wholeheartedly never watching Avatar 2, The Way of Water. It is fucking terrible. I wanted to watch it. I actually do have a good movie to recommend, but I wanted to just get it out of the way here. That maybe in the theater and you're high, it might be good because it looks really neat. But boy, there's even less plot in this one than in the original. And what plot it is basically just the same as the first one. It is, oh boy, is it just a snore fest. There's a couple of good things, but like it's so few and far between. Just, don't waste your time. Like just learn from me that has more time than sense, and just don't watch Avatar 2. What I can tell you to watch though is I rewatched 7 recently, and really good movie.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I play this game every day It's one of those like Wordle kind of things called like Cine2 Nerdle. I think I've recommended it to you before, but it's really fun.
I
and
tried
that
playing
gets
a couple times. Yeah.
that gets brought up. Seven and David Fincher movies get brought up a lot, and it's been years since I've seen that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Apparently, they're doing like a TV show or something coming up soon, and this review channel I like did it, so I was like, or reference it. The point is, watch Seven. Good times had by all.
They're making a TV show.
I think so, or maybe they're just talking about. Honestly, it was one of those headline things because I was searching to figure out where I can find it streaming, and that popped up. I didn't actually read the article.
Yeah, just like I heard they're going to reboot the Lord. They're going to redo the Lord of the Rings movies, which like I get those are 20 years old, but what are you doing? Whatever. We just can't let stuff die. We can't create anything new. We just gotta. Ugh. Anyway, speaking of old stuff, my recommendation: I watched Gentlemen Prefer Blondes with Marilyn Monroe, and that was a lot of fun. It's certainly like a certain kind of movie, but it's very, very pretty and colorful, and I got some genuine laughs out of it.
Really?
Yeah.
I only watched I watched this when I was, I don't know, maybe 15 or so. So I was like an angry, I thought I knew anything about movies, young man. And I thought they're like, oh, she's just attractive, you know, like whatever edgelord bullshit I was onto. So it's good to hear that there's something there. Yeah.
It's a fun movie, and I've also been watching Detroiters, which I think I've probably mentioned before, but man, that show is funny. I don't recommend Progressive Home Insurance. I can tell you that much.
Yeah,
but that's not a movie.
You tell them.
Yeah, I feel like I've watched something else too that I was going to recommend, but now I can't think of what that is. Road Games with Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis was pretty fun. It's
wow, I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, it's this Australian movie. It's takes place in Australia. Stacy Keach is a truck driver. Jamie Lee Curtis is a hitchhiker, and like Stacy Keach may have stumbled onto a serial killer, but he's not sure or not, so he kind of is following him, but that he could be a crazy person too. I don't know. It was fun. Not the most amazing movie ever, but it was a real good time.
Oh yeah, I haven't heard of it, but I like Jamie Lee Curtis. And who was that? Who else was in it?
Stacy Keach.
Stacy Keach. Yeah, he's. Yeah, I mean, I have no real opinion on him, but I think I've liked him in things.
Yeah,
I've seen him in enough. I'm sure.
Oh, also one other recommendation. We sadly lost actor Treat Williams this week. Great character actor, good in so much stuff, and just for really fun movies. Dead Heat with him and Joe Piscopo. Amazing, like super tight, like 90-minute movie about cops and zombies. Things to do in Denver when you're dead. He's really fun in that. He's just been in a lot of great movies. Find a Treat Williams movie. You'll do all right.
You know, we talked about Dead Heat on the old Alex cast. I don't remember it because I made an episode art for it Dead Heat was on there. So anybody out there, go find an episode that I'm not going to find for you from the Alex cast. Yeah, I'm sure you can find. So John, what do you want to watch for next episode of critically acclaimed podcast, John and Alex Hate Stuff?
Oh man, yes. For that podcast, I would love to recommend that for next episode we do The Northman. The Northman. Keep in the sort of fantasy realm of sorts. This is a little bit more like grounded and realistic because it's Robert Eggers, guy behind The Witch and Lighthouse. Very, very period specific kind of dude. But with Alexander Skarsgård, a little bit of Bjork thrown in there. The Almond Taylor-Joy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Vikings fighting, being Vikings.
Fuck yeah.
Swords and sorcery.
That Skarsgård fellow.
Oh, you should watch Infinity Pool, the unrated version, because I think you see I think you see him ejaculate in that movie.
Oh, really? We get to see his Skarsgård? I don't know if that made sense, but I like that.
No, you didn't, but it was cool.
Yeah, we all do.
I got the intention.
That sounds good. Let's do that. All right, so we'll see you then. Remember to follow us on social media. Tell your friends.
That's a defensive maneuver he does. Like when I'm under attack.
Yeah, the Skarsgård. Yeah, it's when he ejaculates at like projectiles coming at him. Yeah, it's kind of like a water show.
Rocks. Yeah.
Ejaculates rocks, like all good Vikings. All right, we're done. Follow us on things. Tell your friends. We love you. Bye.
Goodbye.